Hi, and welcome back. Today we're taking a ride in the car behind the funeral hearse as Grandma Margaret Webster makes her way to Mount Olivet Cemetery, her final resting place. This story is told from both the deceased perspective and Pat's perspective in the car behind the hearse. Follow along with me as I read both perspectives. It's a fun ride. Part 4, Writing. Lost on the Way to Paradise. Pat wrote 2 stories about the drive to the cemetery after her mother's funeral. They are told from 2 different viewpoints, one from Pat's point of view and the other from Margaret's, the deceased, point of view. Lost on the Way to Paradise is a 3rd version, compiled by Pat's daughter Susan, that's me, combining the 2 versions. Margaret, from inside the casket in the hearse on the way to Mount Olivet Cemetery. I'm going out for a ride today. It's been a long time since I've been able to get out. They won't let me drive anymore since my eyesight went downhill. I guess at 99 I shouldn't complain. I think my family is coming along behind me in another car. I'm not sure where we are going, but I hope there's a picnic involved. I'm always ready for a picnic. My daughter Marianne always has picnics on holidays. All my daughters know how much I enjoy picnics. Pat, from the family car following the hearse. My mother Margaret passed away in Kansas City, Missouri. We had her funeral there, and we'll hold her burial at Mount Olivet Cemetery in her hometown of St. Joe, 50 miles away. My 2 sisters, Marianne and Kathleen, and I are in the family limo, along with my husband and Marianne's husband. The trip to St. Joe creates quite a dilemma. The hearse driver leads the way, using his GPS to guide him. Turns out, he's never been to St. Joe or Mount Olivet Cemetery. Margaret. I mentioned that I love picnics. One time, when I was in South Carolina visiting my daughter Pat, we went to the Cradle of Forestry in North Carolina and had a picnic there. They thought it was an odd request since it was December, but we ate in the park before it started snowing. Another time, we were driving from St. Joseph to their hometown in South Carolina and had a picnic along the way, somewhere in Tennessee. I've seen new places, and since they've moved south, I've gone to many new states. But I never left my home state permanently. I did move from St. Joe to Kansas City when I got older and moved out of my big house on Edmond Street into an apartment. Today we are going from Kansas City back to my hometown. Pat, I hate to admit this, but we Websters have a bad reputation. Most of us are awful map readers. Through no fault of our own, we are quite unable to assist the driver of the car with directions on how to get from here to there. Maps don't seem to have been written in the same language as that of the books we read. When I travel with my husband, we go over maps beforehand, and he claims he will memorize the route. Even though we've gone through St. Louis many times, we still sometimes end up in East St. Louis. That's not a place you want to get lost. Somehow he found an internet site that sends Missouri highway updates several times a week. That helps, but we can get lost in most states of the Union. The only reason we've never been lost in Alaska is because we've never been to Alaska. Several of our children seem to have escaped this familial deficiency, but we don't have them at home anymore to guide us on trips. You'll probably wonder, why don't these people get modern and use GPS? One year, our kids gave my husband a GPS for Father's Day, and that has helped. Our voice is Mandy, who usually can get us where we want to go. Most of the children own GPS devices too. Margaret. I'm listening to the driver, who said he is looking for Ashland Avenue. So why are these people not turning on 22nd Street? Don't they know it's the only way to get on Ashland Avenue? Maybe it's because this driver is not from St. Joe and has not been here before. When I lived here, I came out this way to visit the graves of my husband, my parents, and my siblings. I always put peonies from my yard on their graves on Decoration Day. Pat. About 10 other cars are following us. 6 of our 7 children have come from out of state. All 8 of my sister's children and their families are here from all over the country. Many other friends drive themselves to the funeral. Most of them have GPS capability. What we discover is that Mandy and all those other GPS speakers have no clue where Mount Olivet Cemetery is. We later found out that the driver of the family car limo was using another GPS with faulty directions. Margaret, we must be lost. It doesn't take this long to get from Kansas City to St. Joe. My daughters were never good at reading maps, and even though they married extremely smart husbands, no one was getting on the right streets. They all have those fancy gadgets that are supposed to tell them how to go places. Why are we still lost? It's scorching hot in July at high noon. Pat. While the other group wanders around the streets of St. Joe, the temperature rises to nearly 100 degrees. At one intersection, my sisters and I remember that we are on the right track. If we would just follow 22nd Street a few more miles, we would be where we wanted to be. We have no way to communicate this with the hearse, so we keep following the lost leader. He decides to return to Interstate 29 miles from the cemetery. The hearse driver is leading us on a wild goose chase. Margaret. I must admit that most of my family seem to have trouble reading maps. I hope some of the grandchildren get better at map reading. I'd help with the directions, but no one has asked me yet. Pat. In the limo, we 3 geo-illiterate daughters keep giving our driver conflicting directions. We had grown up there, but had not lived in St. Joe for many years. I think this is the way, said Mary Ann. No, it isn't, I said. The men in the car know enough not to get into this debate. The limo driver ignores our directions and continues behind the hearse. Margaret. Some of my grands and great-grands are going along with me on this trip. I've lost count of how many grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren I have. I think someone figured it out once and came up with 42 great-grandchildren and 8 great-great-grandchildren. I gave up a long time ago trying to keep up with birthdays. I just go to parties if I'm invited, especially if it's a picnic. Pat. Unknown to us, the lost lambs behind us are calling each other on cell phones for directions. At least 25 family members are wondering when we will ever get to the burial place. I'm still not sure how the lead driver got us to the right place. Mom spent her last hour more lost than ever. Eventually, we did get to the cemetery. Margaret. I'm sorry, but it's going to be really late by the time everyone arrives. I bet the folks in St. Joe are getting very hot and want me to get there and settle in. Pat. I can't help but think how Mom would have been laughing at all these grieving people lost in a town where she had lived for more than 90 years. I'm sure she had gone to dozens of funerals and burials in this town, driving to the cemetery on these very streets. Margaret. Finally, everyone seems to be here. The rest of the family, my daughters, grandchildren, friends, and even some friends from St. Joe. Maybe it is a picnic. I see a big tent and lots of green areas. Pat. The bottom line was that there was one person who could have directed us to Mount Olivet Cemetery, but she got to ride all over her hometown in style, not caring whether we went along or how long it took to get there. As I reflect on that, I think she must have been enjoying the ride. Margaret. What I have finally come to realize is that we are at Mount Olivet Cemetery. It must be my last trip to St. Joe. Now I know it's my last day on earth. I am so glad to see everyone and know that I will see all of them in eternity when they get there too. I hope we have a picnic as soon as we all get there. Next week, join us as Pat shares a touching tribute she wrote to a friend named Caroline, who started a writing group for those with cancer. Join us next week for Ode to Caroline.